Treat your brand like an art and watch your entire life change. Start treating content like a form of art, like a form of expression, like an extension of your soul, of your heart, of your mind, of the things that you genuinely believe in. And your entire life, I promise you, will change. Not only your business, not only the way you get clients, the way you like get new business, not only that, but your entire life. Because that's what I realized throughout this entire journey with my content, with my own personal brand. I was stuck for such a long time on this hamster wheel of having to perform, having to create a certain type of content to get clients, to essentially like evolve in the industry and prove myself. And when you're in that place, I think that is doing such a like that's doing a lot of damage to you as a creator, and then also the people that you're trying to help. So in this video, I don't know how long this is going to be. We don't have a presentation for this one, but I really wanted to speak from the heart, because it's something that like I'm seeing with everybody that I'm working with, is this idea of, everybody's obviously trying to make money, right? Like if you have a brand, ideally you want to grow, you want to expand. But I think like it needs to, the content you create, regardless of what space you're in, it needs to come from the right place. And the minute you treat content and growing your brand as this almost like job and chore, the minute you eliminate all of the art in it, in the process, all of the like self-expression and this desire to genuinely create something unique in your space, I think that's when your brand becomes synthetic. And I want to call myself out with this, because again, I fell into that trap, and I constantly talk about it. It's very easy once you get to that point where you start to, you start to get numbers, you start to get money, views, not only followers but also clients and stuff like that. It's very easy to, to just fall in that rhythm and pace, in terms of like, yeah, I have to create this to get that. I have to post this video so hopefully I get a client, or hopefully I get a sale. But again, the issue is you can only do that for so long. And I'm talking mainly to you if you're in that place of like trying to genuinely grow a brand that resembles who you are, and it's almost like, again, is an extension of who you are. If you're in that place, this is huge. You need to realize that the best place to be in, and the best creators and the people that you admire, if they are willing to like go the long run, and this is not all of them, but most of them, they treat this like an art. So I was an artist before business. I mentioned this before my personal brands. I had like 3 businesses, but before that, I used to be an artist. I was a recording artist for most of my life, and that was my life, right? And little Andre, like just to give you a quick like backstory, I was always this like creative kid, right? Always like ever since second grade, I was making magazines, then drawing tattoos. And then I got into music. I was writing poetry in like around 4th grade. And then in 5th grade, I was starting to actually like write songs and lyrics. And then I got into music, and music was my entire life. And when I was making music, and especially the more advanced I got, and especially in the music industry, I never once treated music like this performative thing, in terms of like, I have to create this song, so hopefully, or this album, so hopefully people will love this. No, like it was a selfish thing, because at the end of the day, creating art is for you, is for the artist, is for your soul. Is you create art regardless of the form of art. It could be writing, it could be painting, songs, whatever. You create that because you feel like if you don't put that out there, if you don't express yourself, if you don't put out your thoughts, you're gonna go insane. And so when I was an artist, and I still think to a degree I bring a lot of that to what I'm doing in business, um it was the most magical sort of like period in my life that lasted for like quite a long time, like a lot of years, because I was so detached from the need to get something. In business, again, you get to that point where you literally look at it as like input, output, input, output. It's like, okay, I'm going to do these videos here. I'm going to apply this strategy here. So hopefully I get sales, I get people in, I get people to trust me. So essentially it becomes a really transactional thing. But like, again, the caveat to that is later down the line, if you actually want to go the long run, you're going to get to that point where you're going to feel empty. And I'm saying this to everybody watching. Like, you can be at 1,000 per month or 100,000 or 1 million per month. It doesn't matter. Like, the more money you make, if you're in that place of like treating this as a chore and treating this like, oh, I have to make content and I have to do this. If you don't treat this like an art that actually feeds your soul and helps you, not only yourself to express yourself, but helps others in the process. If you don't treat it like an art, it's going to become this like, heavy hamster wheel that never ends. Because in terms of money, in terms of numbers, in terms of followers, in terms of all of these like accolades, it's never enough, right? It's never enough. It's constantly a new milestone. Like, I've talked to people, and I went through this myself, where, they would make, they would have like a record month in business with their brand. And then next month would be lower. And then they would essentially just crumble. And that's because you, as the creator, you attach, and I was a victim of this, or like a perpetrator of this rather. You attach your self-worth and your value to whatever outcome you get. So to put this into perspective, I was at a point in 2025 where for the first half of the year, whenever I was getting clients and whenever I was having a good month, I was good. But then on the flip side, whenever I had a slower month, I wasn't good at all. Like, I was in a shitty fucking mood. I was like, everything was in my mind was chaotic. And that's because for a while there, I kind of lost that artistic way of looking at things. And by the way, again, caveat to this, because this is nuanced. I'm not saying just be a mad artist, and just like do something random and whatever without caring about the business side, because this is not what I'm saying. Business is good and strategy is good. What I'm saying is you don't want to fall into that trap of constantly attaching your self-worth as a creator and as a brand to the outcome that you get, because then you're literally being controlled by numbers. And I have these conversations with my clients constantly where I tell them, you have to realize you're bigger than money. You're above money. You have to stop putting money and views and followers and essentially anything external above you. Because the minute you put that above you, the minute you become, so attached to the outcome, so attached to something external that, by the way, at the end of the day, you cannot really control, that's when you become a robot. And that's when your brand, instead of being something that, again, is like an extension of your soul, something like a vehicle for you to get a message across that you cannot live without expressing, the minute you do that, you just become a robot. And I've seen myself, like in 2024, I talk about it constantly. I went through such a rough burnout. It lasted for like 2 months. I didn't want to make any content because I was looking in my niche and in my industry, comparing myself to others, feeling like I have to perform, feeling like I have to, be better, quote unquote, than this guy over here or that guy. And throughout that chaos, I lost the why. I lost basically, I lost sight of the reason why I'm doing this in the first place, which is to literally express the things and talk about the things that I genuinely believe in. First of all, for myself, because as I said, the artist way is kind of like selfish, but then also for you. And with treating this purely as a business, you become really cold as a brand. You become synthetic. You become, there's no like substance to the message. And I don't want to like, because I respect everybody's hustle and brand, but there are a lot of, top, like really like high level gurus that make a lot of money, but they're completely miserable. They're completely miserable because they treat this as like as a either like a job or again this hamster wheel of constantly having to perform. Like, I have to do this content so I get this outcome, this output, which is, so to me, that's never the, again, don't get me wrong, business is important, money is important, numbers are important, you have to look at that. But at the end of the day, my question to you is like, why do you do it? Why are you creating content? Why are you creating content? And then deeper than that, once you figure out the why, whenever, I want you to be really like aware of this, whenever content feels heavy to create, whenever you're, sitting in front of the camera thinking like, shit, I don't really want to film, I have to do this. Whenever you treat it like this and the language is, I have to do this, rather than I get to express myself, that's a huge sign that you're not in the right place, or you're not, or you kind of like lost sight of the art behind it. And you could be, I'm working, for example, with like divorce lawyers. I'm working with this guy, like he used to be like he was a divorce attorney for like the past 25 years. And I'm telling him the same thing. It's like, don't approach creating content and growing your brand as purely like a cold job or like a business thing. We have to approach it as an art. And the beauty in this message is that this can be applied to literally any type of brand, any type of brand. Because also, and I might have mentioned it before in some other videos, if not, I'm gonna make more. But you need to understand, if the minute you shift your perspective from, okay, like I have to perform, I have to do this, so I get that. The minute you change from that to an artist sort of like mindset, that's when you really unlock that rebel sort of mode. Because the artists, you can look at Prince, you can look at The Weeknd, you can look at, I don't know, Michael Jackson. These artists are rebels. Okay, they go against the wave. They don't conform. They don't. And being a rebel allows you to build your tribe, allows you to build your cult. We talked about it previously on the channel. And so, on top of like, your life changing and you getting the results you finally want, you wanted for so long, it will give you such a freedom, such a sense of freedom when you create for the sake of getting the message out there. And on top of all of this, it will make the content creation process so much easier, so much more seamless, so much, it will literally feel like second nature. Because again, when you're in that performative state of like purely treating this just as a business, input output, you look at everything like that. And the minute something, and I'm saying this because again, I lived it and I've seen this with so many people. The minute numbers are good or up, your mood and your kind of like feeling of self-worth is up. And then again, on the flip side, when everything is down in terms of numbers, you look at yourself like, oh, I'm not good enough. And then it messes with your brain. And at the end of the day, the people that watch your content will feel that. They will feel if you're so stressed out about, how am I going to be perceived? Or is this going to get like, is this going to give me clients? Is this going to give me a new bit? Like, they will feel it. As opposed to someone who, the minute, again, you approach this from, I need to express myself. I need to say this, otherwise I'm going to go crazy. I need to put this message out there, regardless of like how many people it will reach or not. It's not about that. Again, the artist way is not about that. The artist is, I have to sit down and I have to write this to just get it off my chest, off my mind, right? I have to get this, I just have to put it out there to kind of like, to express myself and to kind of like get to that point where I'm discovering myself through my art. Because your business, your brand can literally be a vehicle for you to finally get super, super close to who you really are and to the things that you genuinely believe in. Like I went through so many stages with my personal brand and with my business where I don't know, I might have had like a take 2 years ago that now it's completely changed. And the way I approach conversations, the way I help people, the way I work with people, the way I work with brands has changed because I've allowed myself to go through these stages, right, of constant evolution and change. And treating your brand like an art is also a beautiful process of self-discovery, right? Self-discovery to the point where, again, it's not about what you get, like on the external. It's not about how many views, how many followers, or even how much money you make. It's not about any of this. It's about it's a really intimate process of discovering who you truly are, what your soul stands for, what you truly believe in, independent of the outside, independent of how the audience might perceive you. And then again, once you get to that point, you've unlocked true freedom. And then you can truly create. Then you can truly create your own lane. You can carve your own lane into the market. And I want to make this clear. Your own lane can be crafted regardless of views. It's not about views. It's not even about the reach. It's genuinely about, am I connecting truly with some people, with that select few group of like select few people? Am I really connecting? I know Kanye had this interview, I think it was on Ellen or something, where he goes, yeah, you're creating whatever, but are you connecting? And he was talking about Picasso, he was talking about Steve Jobs, and that's the whole point. There are a lot of people who just say stuff online. There are a lot of people, for example, in MySpace, talking about funnels, talking about offers, talking about brands, but are you truly connecting? Are you truly expressing something deeper than that? Are you allowing yourself as an artist, again in this, to be vulnerable enough to the point where you express your own pain, the things that you went through? Because I think my biggest thesis overall with creating stuff in general is this idea of, and I literally have it tattooed on me. I have an ambigram, I think it's called, where I have it on this arm, where on my sides, like when I look at it, it reads pain, and on the other side, it reads love. And that's my entire thesis. It's like, use the struggle that you went through, use the pain that you went through to create something positive and to bring a positive change. And obviously, this entire process is kind of like a therapy. Like you become your own therapist with this. So I know this was a kind of like a deep topic, but I really want to wrap it up with this. The minute you make that shift, I'm not saying drop the business aspect, not don't care about numbers, no. But the minute you make the shift from what could I get? What could I get out of this? How much money can I make this month? Whatever, trying to like get a new record or whatever. The minute you shift from that to how much more vulnerable and honest can I be? And how much more freedom can I allow myself to truly create, to truly express myself? The minute you make that shift, your entire life will change. Not only on a financial aspect, because this just comes with the dinner, it's a byproduct. On a soul, like on an emotional, spiritual level, you will finally get that freedom that you truly want. Because let's be honest, you want that freedom. When it comes to creating content, you want the freedom. You don't want the fucking content to feel like a chore. So hopefully this resonated. We're gonna talk a bit about, like in the next videos, about this like concept of treating branding and content like a rebel, which ties into this like artistic point of view. But hopefully this makes sense, and I'll see you in the next one.